I couldn't stop asking myself, what could I have done differently to avoid all of this? How do you explain to an adult that their decisions could ruin everything they hold dear? You can't make them change. All you can do is sit back, helpless, and deal with the consequences. And that's exactly where I was. My wife, who once seemed so loving and caring, thought this was some kind of test to make us stronger, to show just how deep our love truly went. To me, it was the complete opposite. It revealed how weak her love really was, how selfish and self-absorbed she had become. I'm just an ordinary guy, living a fairly typical life. Like anyone else, I have my flaws. I can get lost in my own world, work too much, and lose my temper over small things that don't matter. It's not intentional, it just happens. Life comes at you fast. Work, responsibilities, the kids, and it messes up the flow. Sophia and I had been married for 19 years, sharing special moments a few times a week. Those moments were always great, and we both looked forward to more whenever we could manage it. Of course, things like football, good books, or family events occasionally distracted us, but we always made it a point to reconnect when it really mattered. Everything was running smoothly. Our marriage, our finances, our two daughters, Amelia and Olivia, who were 16 and 14. They filled our lives with joy. I thought we had a great life, but then Sophia started talking about shaking things up. She said our private life was too plain, too vanilla, and insisted we needed to spice things up. I was fine with how things were, but I tried to stay open-minded and went along with it. At first, we experimented with different things, and I was okay with that because I kept in good shape. Then, out of nowhere, she suggested role-playing. I had no idea where that idea even came from. Was it from her friends? A magazine? Some ridiculous TV show? It was fun at first, but soon it just felt impractical. Pretending to be some character like Leonardo DiCaprio while trying to focus on a woman I was supposed to find attractive felt awkward. Eventually, I told her I couldn't keep doing it. That's when she got upset. She asked me when the last time I went on a date was. I reminded her, a bit irritated, that we had just gone to that Italian place she'd been wanting to try the Friday before. We went to the movies, and her mom had stayed over with the kids. But she didn't mean with her. She wanted to know when I'd last gone out with someone else. I raised an eyebrow and asked if she was accusing me of something. She quickly backpedaled, saying she wasn't accusing me, just wondering if I could even remember the last girl I went out with before her. I told her it was Tara. About 2 weeks after meeting Sophia, we had a huge fight about that date. When she asked if I ever missed it, I laughed and said, God, no. Dating was awful. Asking someone out, worrying about rejection, those awkward first chats. It was stressful. She asked why I felt that way, and I told her I was just curious if she'd ever thought about dating someone else. She said no and reminded me how upset she was when I went out with Tara and how important exclusivity was to her. I agreed, saying if I felt differently, I wouldn't have asked her to marry me. Marriage meant no dating others. She dropped it, and I didn't hear about it again for a month. Then, one Friday night, after we'd shared an intimate evening, just the two of us, no role-playing, no gimmicks, she brought up something that completely killed the mood. We were lying there, enjoying the post-pleasure glow, when she casually mentioned that Celine, her coworker, had been eyeing me and seemed like she wanted me to ask her to dance. I told Sophia it was flattering, but the only person I was interested in dancing with was her. Sophia said she told Celine she wouldn't mind if I asked her to dance. I made it clear that I had no intention of doing so, and Sophia said it was nice of me to reassure her. But then she threw me off even more by asking if I'd be jealous if she danced with another man. I tried to joke, suggesting her brother would be fine, but she didn't laugh. She clarified that she wouldn't mind me dancing with other women as long as they were polite and kept their hands to themselves. Then she asked if there was anyone at the event I wanted to dance with. I replied, I don't remember anyone asking me, and she just nodded, saying she was just curious. I had no idea where she was going with this, but it made me uneasy. 2 months passed without anything unusual, until the promotion party at the Hayes Rhino, where a great band was playing. At the party, we were sitting in a big circular booth when Sophia casually started talking to Celine again. She told me that Celine had expressed an interest in dancing and asked if I could be a gentleman and ask her to dance. Remembering our conversation from 2 months ago, I immediately felt awkward. I liked Celine, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings by refusing, and I certainly didn't want to dance with her. The thought of her body pressed against mine made me uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to turn her down politely. I liked dancing, but not when I felt so out of my depth, especially with someone like Celine, who moved like a dancer, smooth and effortless. I felt trapped, but eventually, I stood up, saying I thought I heard our song starting. Celine stood up too, her brown thighs visible beneath her short blue dress. As the song ended, the band transitioned to a slow number, and I wondered why this was happening. Celine fit perfectly against me, her black curls brushing my face. She smelled nice, and when she looked up at me, her large brown eyes seemed to melt into mine, her teeth flashing a bright white against her warm skin. She wasn't exactly dark, but more of a creamy coffee color. After the dance, Celine thanked me and mentioned that Sophia had assured her I wouldn't mind. I told her that, while I genuinely liked her and thought she was one of the sweetest people I knew, dancing with her just wasn't a good idea for me. She laughed it off, saying I was safe with her, and teased that if I weren't married, she'd be all over me. Still, she insisted that our friendship mattered most and suggested we enjoy that one dance for what it was. I gave her a light squeeze, and we finished the song. When we returned to the booth, Sophia was nowhere to be seen. I scanned the room and spotted her across the dance floor in her black and white dress, laughing with some young, Nordic-looking guy. His hands were suspiciously low, and I felt my stomach churn. As soon as she saw me looking for her, she smiled and waved. That was it. The rage inside me flared up. She had set me up with Celine just so she could go dance with this guy. I grabbed a couple of 20s and tossed them on the table before heading straight for the exit. Celine watched me leave and quickly ran after me as I neared the door. She caught up, out of breath, and asked where I was going. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her we were being played. Sophia had been subtly hinting at the idea of us dating other people, asking me strange questions, and now it was clear. This whole thing was a setup. Celine, looking uncertain, asked if I was really just going to leave Sophia there like that. I confirmed it, and she grabbed my arm, guilt written all over her face. She apologized, and I told her I wasn't happy about being manipulated either. Celine then asked for a ride to my house to get her car. As we neared home, my phone buzzed, but I didn't bother to check it. Celine glanced at her phone, then answered it, speaking in a low voice. She told Sophia we were almost at my place, explaining that leaving wasn't her idea. Celine warned Sophia not to put her in that position again before hanging up. Then, she turned to me and told me Sophia wanted me to go back and pick her up. I sighed, feeling frustrated. Celine explained that Sophia had been talking to her coworker, Hannah, who was obsessed with the idea of an open marriage. According to Hannah, it had improved her relationship with her husband, Lucas. Sophia had bought into it, and Celine believed she was trying to do the same thing with us. I was stunned when Celine added that Sophia knew she'd always been attracted to me. I almost choked on my breath and quickly apologized for the awkwardness of the situation. Celine shrugged, admitting that she did find me attractive, but was the type of person who preferred being with one person and wasn't into sharing. She reassured me that none of this had anything to do with her, and I promised I'd keep her updated on what happened. She then got into her car and drove off. When I got back to the house, I locked the door to the master bedroom and tried to get some sleep. The drinks I had earlier probably helped, but I was only half asleep when I heard a door slam downstairs, followed by footsteps in the hall. I heard the doorknob to the bedroom twist a few times, followed by a tap on the door. Sophia's voice whispered through, careful not to wake the girls, asking what was going on. The tapping and whispering continued for about 10 minutes. I tried to slip out before she woke up in the morning, but it didn't work. She came downstairs while I was packing files into my briefcase. Furious, she demanded to know what was wrong with me. I snapped back, telling her maybe she should ask herself that question. Her voice shot up, asking what I meant by that. I grabbed my briefcase and shot back, saying everything I was doing was in response to her behavior. I told her I didn't want to look at her right then, and warned her how close she was to pushing me into permanent anger. I told her to get her act together and be ready to talk when I got home. I added that I would be picking up the girls and taking them to my mom's. She puffed herself up, but I left and went to work. After picking up the girls from school, I told my mom that Sophia and I were having some issues and needed space. When I got home later, Sophia was there. She'd made cookies, and there was a plate of oatmeal cookies with chocolate chips and M&Ms, plus a cup of coffee waiting for me. She hugged me briefly, kissed my cheek, and sat down next to me on the sofa. I told Sophia I was upset about what happened the night before. I explained that her actions had been hurtful, embarrassing for both of us, and disrespectful to Celine, who was supposed to be her friend. Sophia avoided my eyes, mumbling an apology. I asked her what she had been thinking, and after a long pause, Sophia blurted out that she'd been considering dating other people. I was stunned and told her there were a lot of problems with that idea, the first being that we were both married. She countered, saying other married couples did it, pointing to open marriages as a way to improve their relationship. I typed, "How many people have open marriages?" into the search bar and clicked on the first link. The results came back showing that fewer than 1% of Americans are in open marriages. Sophia pointed out that 1% still represented a significant number, around 3 million people. I raised an eyebrow and suggested we try another search. How many Americans expect their partners to be faithful? The numbers didn't lie. Over 95% of Americans expect fidelity in their relationships. I asked Sophia what she thought that meant. She shrugged, muttering something about how most people just weren't open-minded. I couldn't help but ask how many of those open marriages actually lasted. She was reluctant to continue the search, but I pushed on, typing in, "How many open marriages end in divorce?" The answer hit us both like a ton of bricks. 92% of open marriages end in divorce within 5 years. I broke it down for her. Think about it. Less than 1% of Americans are in open marriages. So, out of 1 million people, you've got fewer than 10,000 in open marriages. If 92% of them fail, that means only about 800 people from that 10,000 will still be together after 5 years. That's 800 out of 1 million. I stared at her, making sure she understood the odds of success. How does that sound to you? She hesitated before admitting that the chances weren't great. I wasn't willing to go along with her experiment, and I explained how resentment, jealousy, and insecurity would destroy us if I did. I reassured her that I wasn't desperate to keep her under those conditions, and that other women found me attractive. If I were a loser, or some kind of sick individual, maybe I'd play along with her little game, but I wasn't that man. I asked if she trusted Hannah so much, and if she believed everything Hannah said, pointing out that Hannah had been divorced multiple times. When Sophia didn't know the details of Hannah's history, I did a quick search and found that Hannah had been divorced 4 times. I couldn't believe it. So, you're taking advice from someone who has failed at marriage 4 times? I asked, incredulous. Sophia defended Hannah, claiming that she and Lucas had a strong marriage, but I wasn't buying it. My frustration was mounting. "Where are you getting all this from, Sophia?" I demanded. She finally admitted that Hannah talked about it all the time, that she and Lucas barely communicated, and instead spent all their time trying to involve friends in their relationship dynamics. I asked Sophia how she thought that situation would turn out. Sophia suggested our private life had become stale. I immediately disagreed. "I'm perfectly happy with it," I said firmly. "Your desire to do role-playing and all that weird stuff is what's made things weird. Do you remember the last time we had a romantic moment?" I asked her if those ideas had come from Hannah, and her face told me everything I needed to know. I was stunned. "Are you seriously telling me that this is what Hannah's been pushing on you?" She suggested it could be exciting to share experiences, but I immediately shut that down. I told her that if she went through with it, our relationship was over. Sophia looked at me, shocked. "Does that mean divorce?" she asked quietly. I responded sharply, "You're the one willing to throw away our marriage. If you want an open marriage, it won't be with me. You don't love me enough to respect our vows and keep this family together." I said if we separated, it would be because she chose this, not because I couldn't accept it. She insisted it was inevitable, but I disagreed. "No, it's not. If you go through with this, I'll see a lawyer." I gave her an ultimatum. "You can forget about this nonsense and start working on our marriage, or we can go our separate ways and begin the divorce process right now." I even suggested therapy, though I had little hope it would work. I told her the whole idea was a result of Hannah's bad influence and warned her that nothing good would come from it. I wasn't going to sit by and let her destroy our family. Sophia taunted me, claiming she had the freedom to do whatever she wanted and that I couldn't stop her. She tried to turn the tables, arguing that I wouldn't divorce her because I was afraid of losing everything, threatening to take the girls and the house, leaving me with alimony and child support. I stood my ground. Think carefully, Sophia. This isn't something you can undo once it's done. I'm not going to let you destroy our family over some fantasy. I refuse to play along, no matter what you threaten. She stepped toward me, trying to embrace me, but I pushed her away. Don't touch me, I said sharply. I need to think about this. I stood up, my resolve hardening. I'll let you know what I decide. But the truth was, I didn't need time to think. I needed time to plan. I couldn't just let her walk all over me. She was right about one thing. The complexities of divorce were a mess. I had to be strategic if I was going to protect myself and the girls. After spending some time on the computer and phone, I had a financial plan in place. But the real issue was the girls. Under Georgia law, children over 14 get to choose their custodial parent, and I wasn't about to let Sophia use that as leverage against me. I was certain about Olivia. My daddy's girl had always been my rock, and I knew she would stand by me. But Amelia was a different story. She loved me, no question, but she adored her mother just as much. It made everything more complicated. I hoped that if I could explain to them how Sophia was trying to use them as pawns in her push for an open marriage, they would see through her manipulation and choose to side with me. If Sophia had told me, years ago, that she wanted to explore other relationships after 19 years of marriage, I would have walked away without a second thought. But now she wanted to rewrite the rules and force me into compliance, using the kids as leverage in a sick game. 2 nights later, we had another conversation. Sophia started with an apology, but I wasn't inclined to accept it. She tried to turn the blame back on me, as always, claiming that I was the one who wanted to be with other women. I knew better than to fall for her deflection. I asked her point-blank about therapy and marriage counseling. She denied having any issues, telling me that I was the one causing problems. She said she wasn't planning anything specific, just that she wanted to keep the option open. I pressed her on the contradiction in her logic, pointing out that I had had plenty of opportunities to cheat over the years, but had stayed faithful out of commitment to our marriage. When I voiced my concern about how her actions were affecting our children, our promises to each other, and even our faith, she brushed it off. She didn't care. The kids? She'd deal with them later. It was clear she wasn't even considering how this would affect the family. Later that day, after a tense silence between us, Sophia dropped her bombshell. She was going to get the kids, no matter what. She threatened that, as their mother, she would undoubtedly get custody, and she would make visitations a nightmare for me. The anger inside me flared up. After the heated exchange, she stormed off as I climbed the stairs. I heard a faint gasp and a muffled sob. Both of them had been crying. I hugged them both tightly. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," I said softly. Amelia, ever the protector, reassured me, saying it wasn't my fault and placing all the blame on her mother. Olivia, on the other hand, was in disbelief, struggling to process how her mother could even consider doing this to her family. My voice heavy. "I don't know, sweetheart. I really don't. She's been influenced by the wrong people, and I've tried everything to change her mind. She doesn't care about the family anymore." I explained my plan to them. I was going to wait until Sophia thought I had given up. When she went out on a date with someone, probably Brandon Hayes, I would be ready. I would take the girls, and we would leave. I asked them, "Are you with me on this, or do you want to stay with your mom?" Olivia exchanged a glance with Amelia, then said, "No, Dad. We're going with you." My heart swelled with relief. Despite everything, despite the pain, my daughters were on my side. For the next 2 months, Sophia and I barely spoke. She moved into the spare bedroom, while I stayed in what used to be our shared space. Every time I tried to engage her in conversation, to reason with her, the interactions turned cold and strained. It was clear that there was no getting through to her. One day, she announced that she was going out with Brandon Hayes on Friday night, and that I should come along. She promised me it would be an exciting experience. Reluctantly, I agreed. If she was going to do this, I figured I might as well tag along and keep an eye on things. But deep down, I regretted it already. As she rushed across the garden to get ready, she hugged me tightly, thanking me for being willing to participate. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to call Celine. When I told her about the plan, Celine was furious. She didn't even know she was being set up to be with me when Sophia invited her to go clubbing with Brandon. Upon hearing the full story, Celine swore she would confront Sophia. I asked her for help, explaining that I was planning to leave Sophia, and I needed her to trust me. At first, Celine was skeptical, but after I calmed her down and explained my plan, she agreed to help. I was going to pretend to go along with Sophia's plan, but once we were at the club, I would make my move. Celine would help me get the girls to my new place while I packed up our belongings. On Friday morning, before I went to work, I asked her one last time if she was sure about her decision. I reminded her that we'd had an enjoyable week together, that things didn't have to go this way. But she was resolute. "We'll talk about it afterward," she said, brushing off my concerns. She thanked me for agreeing to go along with her plan, promising that the night would be the best yet. When Celine arrived at the house on Friday evening, she looked absolutely stunning. Sophia, cute and petite with that fresh-faced look, had always been alluring, but Celine was in an entirely different league. She was tall, with curves in all the right places, those curves that seemed to defy gravity, and a body that spoke to more than just a good diet and exercise. She wore a short, tight red sheath dress adorned with sequins that shimmered as she moved, looking breathtaking. I was dressed in a sport coat, black pants, and a simple ribbed t-shirt under the coat, enough to give the illusion of a man who was still trying to hold it together. When Celine stepped inside, her eyes lit up as she took in my attire. "Trying to seduce me, Dylan?" she teased with a smile. I chuckled and shook my head. "Strictly business tonight. Any other time, I'd be happy to entertain such a notion," I said with a wink. She smirked, feigning regret. "Too bad," she said, giving me a once-over. She stepped closer, letting me get a glimpse of her legs beneath the tight fabric. The flirtation was obvious, but I needed her to play along. The whole charade was about making Sophia think I was fully in the game. As I raised my hands toward the hem of her dress, pulling it teasingly upward, Celine hesitated. "Sophia might come in any second," she warned. I grinned and leaned in closer. "She won't suspect a thing. This is all part of the act." We both shared a laugh as I continued the playful interaction, though I couldn't deny the thrill of being so close to Celine in that moment. Before I could fully appreciate the view, the door swung open, and Sophia stepped into the room. Her eyes widened at the sight of us, and for a split second, I could see her mask of control slip. But then, with a forced smile, she said, "Starting early, are we?" I shot back, "Well, maybe you and Brandon should be the ones getting a room, huh?" I gave her a wink, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Sophia smirked in return, not missing a beat. Without another word, we all headed out. Brandon was already at the club when we arrived. I shook his hand firmly, just as I had planned. My grip was like a vice, a product of years spent powerlifting without straps. As soon as I took his hand, I saw him flinch, his knees wobbling ever so slightly. He tried to keep his composure, but I could tell the pain was getting to him. The guy had that pretty boy vibe to him. Soft hands, meticulously groomed. One of those types who was probably more concerned about his hair than anything else. I couldn't resist. "So, Brandon, are you a hairdresser? Or are you one of those Scientologist types?" I asked, genuinely curious. He laughed awkwardly. "What? No, I'm not a hairdresser. I mean, come on, they're mostly people in same-sex relationships, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "Huh. Okay, well, what about Ron Hubbard? Ever thought about joining the cult?" I asked, testing a theory I had shared with Celine earlier. Celine nearly choked on her drink, clearly fighting to hold in her laughter. Sophia, on the other hand, shot me a look that could cut through steel, her frustration building by the second. Brandon, completely clueless, looked between us, totally unaware of what was going on. I decided to let it slide for now. Celine leaned in, her voice low. "You're a mean man, Dylan," she said, but I could see the amusement flickering in her eyes. "Yeah, well, it's been one hell of a night," I replied, nudging her toward the booth with a wink. The evening was starting to feel like one big twisted performance, and I had to keep my cool. By the time we reached the booth, Celine was playing her part perfectly. I danced with her twice, but it was the third time that really got my attention. She was doing everything short of pressing too close to me on the dance floor. Her body moved in perfect sync with mine, and for a moment, I almost forgot about the mess I was in. Meanwhile, Sophia was off with Brandon. It didn't take long before I found Celine's gaze again. There was something deeper in her eyes, something more than just the fun and games of the evening. I couldn't resist anymore. Ready for the big show? I asked her quietly. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I saw a hint of something more serious there. I couldn't hold back. The kiss was everything I had expected, and more. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a release, the culmination of everything I had been holding in. It was better than I could have ever imagined. But just as the kiss deepened, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Sophia and Brandon were back at the booth. I pulled away quickly, flashing a grin. "Oh no," I exclaimed, mimicking a Saturday Night Live skit. "Look who's back." Celine caught on immediately, and so did Sophia. Brandon, however, stood there confused, unaware of what was really happening. Celine struggled to stifle her laughter as she shot a glance at Sophia, whose face had puffed up like a blowfish, her smug expression gone in an instant. I shrugged, not missing a beat. "Celine and I are gonna head out. You two enjoy yourselves." Sophia, clearly frustrated but trying to maintain her composure, walked us to the door. "Are you okay?" she asked, a mix of concern and irritation in her voice. "You've been acting like an idiot tonight." I sighed. "I'm not okay, Sophia, but if you're staying, this is it. This is your choice. And it's permanent." Her face almost lit up. "This is going to be great for us, Dylan. Just relax and enjoy yourself," she urged, a smirk creeping back into her voice. I shot her a pointed look. "Enjoy myself? You're planning to enjoy yourself with Brandon," I said, stressing his name. Sophia hesitated before reluctantly confirming, "Maybe I'll be home around midnight and spice things up with him." She didn't even realize the sting in her words. I slapped my forehead, remembering her plans with Brandon. "Fine," I said, "but if Celine and I are still busy when you get back, keep it quiet, okay?" Sophia kissed me on the cheek, her lips lingering a little longer than necessary. "Enjoy yourself," she said, her tone still dripping with smugness. I turned and walked out, feeling the weight of finality settle over me. In the car, Celine asked if I was sure about everything. "After everything I've been through, Celine, yeah, I'm sure," I said flatly. "I've cried enough tears. I'm done now. This phase is over." When we arrived, I saw the moving truck was already packed, and the girls were busy hauling their clothes downstairs, packing them into large plastic tubs. The movers were wrapping up, and we only took the essentials. The beds, the TVs, the electronics, the big screen that had only been replaced 6 months ago with an even bigger one. Once everything was packed, Celine took the girls in her car to our new place while I stayed behind with the movers. I took one last look at the house. The emptiness of it hit me hard. 19 years of memories lingered in the walls, the rooms, the silence. With a sigh, I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the kitchen table next to my cell phone. The girls' phones were already there, signaling it was time to go. The house was gone. That life, that version of me, was gone. I could feel the weight of it in my chest, but at the same time, there was a sense of freedom, like I was finally stepping out of a long, dark tunnel. I locked up, loaded my tools into the truck, and drove away, leaving the old house behind. The girls were excited about the new place, especially the backyard pool. They couldn't wait to try it out. "Do you like that, baby?" I asked Olivia as she gazed out the window at the new house. "Yeet," she said, grinning. I had no idea what yeet meant, but it sounded positive. Celine, ever the enigma, was sitting in the front seat, looking as amazing as always, her smile as effortless as ever. Things were changing, and somehow, I felt like I was finally moving forward. Even if she were Jennifer Lawrence, I was too tired to care. Not that I'd prefer Jennifer Lawrence over Celine, but you get my point. I think Celine sensed the exhaustion in me, and with a dazzling smile, she placed a quick, gentle peck on my cheek before she was gone. Just like that, she was out of my life for the moment. The lingering scent of her perfume was the only reminder that she had been there. Sweet, intoxicating, and fleeting. The next morning, I got up early and made coffee, hoping the caffeine would stir something in me. The girls joined me a little later, and we sat together at the kitchen bar, eating Danish kringle and drinking chocolate milk. The peaceful normalcy of it all felt like a brief escape from the chaos that had overtaken my life. The girls were busy watching cartoons, their giggles filling the room. By noon, they were out in the pool, wearing little bikinis and splashing around. My mind wandered. I couldn't help but wonder what Sophia was doing. She was probably frantic, calling anyone she knew, asking where we'd gone, desperately trying to figure out what had happened. The thought of her scrambling around, likely panicking, gave me a small sense of satisfaction. She was going to have a tough time finding us. I wasn't working, hell, I'd sold the business, made a decent chunk of change, and now I didn't have to answer to anyone. The girls weren't in school yet. It was summer vacation, and our life had this strange stillness to it. The truck, the one Sophia had always been so fond of, was parked safely in the garage. I was sure she'd reported it stolen, or at least thought I'd taken it, but without the truck, she was left to rely on electronics to track us down. Her messages flooded our inboxes, and I noticed she was reaching out to the girls, sending Instagram DMs, tweets, and direct messages, hoping for some kind of response. We read them, but I didn't reply. It felt good to make her work for it. Let her figure out where we were. Let her chase me. I knew she'd eventually get desperate enough to look for me. She had bills to pay, a job to go to, and a life to lead. But I was under no such pressure. I wasn't making any payments, and I sure as hell wasn't going to be the one to call her. It only took a few weeks before things escalated. I was at the grocery store one morning when a man approached me, a middle-aged guy wearing a cheap suit who looked out of place in a place like this. He asked if I was Dylan, and when I confirmed, he immediately introduced himself as a private detective hired by Sophia. He told me his job was to find me and report my location to her. I could tell by his tone that he was expecting some kind of reaction, but I was too tired for games. "Take a hike," I said, brushing him off without a second thought. He didn't like that, and his voice took on a threatening edge. "You don't want to make this harder on yourself. I'll be reporting this to her, and I suggest you call her before I do. It'll be better for everyone." I didn't flinch. "Go ahead," I muttered. "I don't plan on contacting her." I turned and walked away, but I knew this wasn't over. The detective didn't follow, but I was certain Sophia had other plans in motion. Sure enough, within an hour, the police showed up. They'd gotten their tip from Sophia, who spun some story about me kidnapping the girls. The officers were polite at first, but their questions were pointed. They asked me to come down to the station to sort things out. When I refused, they made it clear I didn't have much of a choice. I was arrested, of course. The girls were taken in another car, and by the time we arrived at the station, Sophia was already there, pacing like a tiger in a cage. When the girls saw her, they didn't rush to greet her. Instead, they pushed her away, and a female officer escorted them to another room. As for me, I was led into a room with two detectives who wasted no time trying to break me. They grilled me for details, asking why I took the girls, where we had gone, and if I had any intention of returning them. I didn't say much, just that I intended to remain silent and wanted to speak to an attorney. That shut them up, at least for a while. I called Frederick Donovan, and he showed up within 45 minutes, just like he said he would. The girls confirmed they were with me willingly and denied any claims of kidnapping, refusing to even speak to Sophia. Frederick was a pro. He pointed out that there was no court order regarding custody, and under Georgia law, both parents had equal rights. He even mentioned that kids over 14 could choose which parent they wanted to live with. The police didn't have much choice but to let us go. When we walked out, Celine was waiting for us, looking as calm and composed as ever. Sophia, however, was a mess, standing there in the parking lot, crying her eyes out. She dropped to her knees, her face twisted in anguish. "Marquis knock," I wasn't moved. I reminded her how I'd begged her not to get involved with Brandon, and since she didn't listen, why should I care now? I was done. I agreed to talk and asked her where she wanted to go. She wanted to go home, but I wasn't interested in going back to that house. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing it, knowing what had gone down there. I suggested we go to my place, and she reluctantly agreed. When we got to my place, I let her in, got her a cup of coffee, and we sat at the kitchen bar. After a while, she broke the silence. What do I need to do to get you to come home? To see the girls? I didn't answer right away. I don't have control over what the girls want. That's on them, not me. When she asked what could be done about us, I gave her the only answer I could. File for divorce. She didn't want a divorce. She just wanted me to come home. But I had already made my decision. I am home, I told her. I don't live with you anymore. Her eyes welled with tears as she apologized, admitting it was a mistake to push me into this. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. She begged for forgiveness, her voice trembling as she suggested we see a marriage counselor or therapist. But I couldn't bring myself to believe in any of it anymore. The issue isn't that I don't want it, I said flatly. The issue is that you do. You wanted everything to stay the same while you did whatever you wanted. I can't fix that. I leaned forward, my tone sharp. File for divorce. Do it within the next couple of months, or I will. Her face twisted in frustration, and she lashed out. You're a fool, Dylan. You took all our money. You sold the business and emptied our accounts. What did you do with it, huh? I took a breath, holding my ground. I sold the business at a loss, Sophia. I didn't take anything I wasn't entitled to. I paused, letting the weight of my next words sink in. And I don't have a cent of it left. I saw confusion flicker across her face, but I didn't explain. I didn't need to. What I had done was part of a bigger plan. One I hadn't shared with anyone, least of all her. The money I'd spent had already been moved long before any of this came to a head, securely stashed in an offshore account. The sale of the business had been an ugly one. I sold it to a Danish company for much less than it was worth, less than I owed in taxes. But the surplus had been used to offset future liabilities. I had overpaid the IRS, and the government would never know what I had done with the rest. As for the brokerage accounts, they remained untouched. I knew I would have to give up half of that to secure the girls' future, but that was a price I was willing to pay. The girls' trust fund was already set up, ensuring they'd be financially comfortable for the next few years, no matter what. I'd also been making other preparations. Every time I went out, I used my debit card, specifically requesting cash back from various stores, Walmart, local convenience stores, grocery shops around town. It wasn't much each time, just between $160 and $200. But over the course of weeks, it added up. I had asked 3 people in each transaction, and soon enough, I had a decent stash. All of it was legitimate. And when I needed it, I had a stash of cash hidden away in an old chest in a storage unit. The real sting of the conversation came when I told her about the house. You can keep it, I said matter-of-factly. There's enough equity in it for you to sell, clear the mortgage, and get by for a while. Maybe you should move in with Mr. Brandon. I'm sure he has room for you. I smiled coldly. I'd love to see how his wife reacts to that. Her eyes went wide, and she froze. I didn't know he was married. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? How convenient. I laughed dryly. I told you to move on, I continued, my voice hardening. File for divorce. I could feel her desperation, her hands wringing as she sobbed in the doorway. Her words hung in the air. Please, just come home for the girls. I love you. I miss you. I stood at the door, unmoving, until she stopped, and with tear-filled eyes, she asked me, please tell the girls I love them, and that I'm sorry. I nodded stiffly. I'll pass the message on, I said, but I made it clear, I'm not coming back. I'm not filing for divorce because I don't want one. I want you to come home, but we both know that's never going to happen. When she left, I called Celine. She brought the girls home but didn't come in. 2 days later, she showed up again. This time, she was carrying dinner, a homemade chicken tetrazzini with French-cut green beans and a big basket of garlic bread. When Amelia answered the door, Sophia tried to pull her into a hug, but Amelia immediately stiff-armed her. Sophia forced a smile, greeting me with a soft, hey, baby, but Amelia was already calling for my attention. I heard Sophia apologizing, telling me she loved me, and saying how much she missed me. Amelia cut her off quickly. I don't want to hear it, she said. her voice harsh. Stay away. Upstairs, the girls were furious. Amelia, especially, was livid. She ruined everything, Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. She destroyed our family. How could she do that? Sophia tried to engage with the girls, but they gave her curt, one-word answers. It was clear none of them were willing to forgive her yet. When dinner was over, we cleaned up in silence, packed Sophia's things, and got ready for her to leave. When Sophia asked Olivia for a hug, Olivia turned away. You're not my mom anymore, she said, her voice as cold as ice. Sophia's face crumpled. It took her nearly half an hour to compose herself enough to leave. As weeks turned into months, Sophia continued to visit about once a week, but each time, the girls rejected her more forcefully. She never filed for divorce, hoping somehow to convince me to move back in with her. After 6 months, I finally took matters into my own hands. I filed for divorce. When the papers were signed and the divorce finalized, I saw the look on her face. It was as if the final reality had finally hit her. The court granted her visitation rights, but somehow, every time she planned to visit, something always came up. I didn't care anymore. I hoped she found someone who fit her open lifestyle. As for me, I remained unmarried, dedicating my life solely to my girls. They were all that mattered now.